Hey, it's your friend Troy CJ here, and welcome to my Week 6 battle for the P4G Next Generation. We are going up against Max Rapture, coach of the Tasmanian Toxicroaks, a good old Australian. I'm sure that sounded nothing like what Australians sound like. You know, if you just watch too many Steve Irwin episodes or whatever, you might be inclined to think that, but I digress. Max has a very scary team. He has Zapdos, Toxapex, Arcanine, Metagross, Comfey, Piloswine, Protean Greninja. That's not just regular Greninja, it's Protean. Serena, Alakazam, Turtonator, and Throw. I was trying to figure out if it was called Throw, if it was Sock. I couldn't remember. But anyway, definitely an interesting matchup here. There's a few Mons right away that I notice have pretty nice matchups, and I am going to go through this part pretty quickly because we are going to hop right into the battle in just a few minutes. Toad in particular looks really good. I need a little bit of chip damage on things like Greninja and Zam, which is really funny to say because those aren't like defensive Mons. I just don't happen to be packing coverage to hit those Mons super effectively with my Seismitoad. But if I can get chip on those Mons, then I should be in good position to sweep. Volcanion looks really good. He's got the Toxapex, but Toxapex is very easily exploited by my team, which is pretty nice. And yeah, like those are the two big things in general. I really want to continue to bring rain as long as people are refusing to respect it. Like my last two opponents pretty much didn't bring water resists. Carson literally didn't bring one, and my opponent before that, which was Johnny GB, only brought Greninja and AV Kecleon to deal with rain. So I'm going to force my opponents to respect this. And like I mentioned, we are going to be doing that first with a Life Orb Toad. Rock, Scald, Earth Powered, Sludge Wave. Hits pretty much the entirety of his team super effectively, except for like the Zam and the Greninja, like I noted. This investment allows us to outspeed a Scarf Zapdos, so that's why we are going literally max. If I was a little smarter, I would have dropped this down to 179. Reason being is that you get a better return on your Life Orb. You're only taking 17 points of damage instead of 18 points, but it's a little too late for that. Next, we've got a Specs Volcanion with max speed on this, just to give us the best opportunity to outspeed, again, stuff like Zapdos. Like Zapdos with 0 speed and Comfey with 0 speed hit 120. So I just figured we would go all the way up to 122 in case he puts a little bit of speed on there. Steam Eruption is just so hard-hitting in the rain. It two-shots a Spadef Toxapex in the rain, which is nuts. We've got other coverage moves like Fire Blast for Serena. If we're in the rain, we can use Sludge Wave instead. Fire Blast is also nice for Metagross, although Metagross doesn't really switch into Steam Eruption anyway. But yeah, this thing just annihilates him. And I've got a couple of Mons that I can abuse to get this thing in for free. One of those being Pelipper with U-Turn. We are packing a Damp Rock because I want as many turns of rain as possible for my Volcanion and my Seismitoad. This investment here, I don't remember exactly. I think this was to live a Rock Slide from Greninja, a little bit better. We put enough speed into here to outspeed Comfey and Zapdos by a few points. Then we put the rest into special attack. Just because Pelipper, with the rain up, it can do work on its own with Scald and Hurricane, so that was really nice. And I put Roost as the last move instead of something like Defog, just because I figured if I could, get this thing up to a decent amount of health, I could, continue to bring it in for more turns of rain, if I'm able to keep this thing high enough. Next up, we've got another Banded Coco set. I brought this week 3 versus Panther, and it did really amazingly. I got like 3 kills. It's just really nice versus his team, because as you can see, his only like electric resists are Piloswine and Serena, and I guess Turtonator. And none of those Mons really like Brave Bird that much, especially Serena. Like, Serena's what I'm expecting the most. Serena is so incredibly pressured this match. And I think he's going to be inclined to bring Spadef to deal with Volcanion, Toad, and by the special Coco. But that's why I was going physical. And plus just the opportunity to U-turn on things like Piloswine, which are really obvious on switch in. I can then bring in my Volcanion and just blow something up with Steam Eruption. Like, if it doesn't outspeed me at 2 KO, that's all there is to it. So yeah. And then we have enough speed on here for Greninja, pretty standard stuff. Next is a sub D-Dance Mence, which I thought was pretty interesting. The reason being, I kind of wish I had Intimidate on this thing instead of Moxie to be able to take advantage of like defensive Arcanine a little bit more easily. But that was the thought process here, is that I could bring in Mens on a defensive Arcanine and click sub versus it as he tries to go for Will-O-Wisp. And it kind of works the same way as well. Like, Arcanine might be a decent switch into a Salamence that's set up, but if I'm behind a sub, not only can he not Will-O-Wisp me, but he can't intimidate me. So that's kind of what I was thinking here. And Dragon Claw plus EQ hits pretty much everything on his team. Comfey does not really appreciate Earthquake, and Metagross definitely does not, and those are his only 2 resists. So I thought this would be neat as a good win condition. And then I have another backup win condition in the back here, which is a Life Orb Musharna. Again, I should have done the same thing where put the EVs a little bit lower, just like this, but I did not, so it is what it is. It doesn't really make a huge difference. But yeah, this combination of moves hits pretty much his whole team. The only mons that resist Psyshock are Alakazam, Greninja, Metagross, and I think that's it, right? Yeah, that's it. So Shadow Ball hits Metagross and hits Zam, and then Dazzling Gleam hits a Greninja as long as it's not in some sort of Protean form. And it does pretty cleanly one-shot with Dazzling Gleam, so that's pretty nice. And he's got nothing to outslow me. I don't know why he didn't make this 0, but it doesn't really matter. He doesn't have anything that approaches my slowness at all on his team. Like, I guess Toxapex could if it was a 0-speed Toxapex, but I still outslow that by 6 base points. But yeah, I just thought Musharna would be pretty scary in this matchup. As you can see, it's a very hyper-offensive build, and I am thinking that it's going to work pretty well. Like, all I have to do is get rid of his water checks, and then Toad goes in. If I can weaken, like, Metagross and get chipped on things like Comfey, Turtonator, Zapdos, Arcanine, then my Musharna goes in. And I've got mons that are really good at breaking, like Volcanion and Koko. So, basically just need to find myself in a position where I have at least one sweeper where it can finish off the game for me. And if I can do that, I'll be in good shape. So that's the team builder. Let's hop into the battle. So Max decided to bring his Serena, Arcanine, Metagross, Piloswine, Greninja, and Toxapex to this matchup, and it's a pretty interesting squad. At first glance, it sort of strikes me as kind of bulky and more on the defensive side, just because he really only has the Greninja as kind of like a fast offensive burner. You know, things like Metagross and Arcanine can be run offensively, but I guess I just tend to think of them as bulkier. Piloswine is there obviously as the Tapu Koko check. He's got the Toxapex, which I'm expecting to probably be some sort of Spadef set, just because that's his best way to deal with things like Volcanion. Arcanine, like, it makes sense that he brought it for something like Mega Scizor, just because Scizor does not do very well versus it. Serena is probably also some sort of Spadef thing, so, like, he's got to have some sort of offensive set hidden on his team somewhere. I'm just not 100% sure what that is. But in terms of lead matchup here, I think getting at my Rain as soon as possible is going to be pretty great. And the nice thing about Pelipper is that it kind of lures in the Toxapex most likely, and that's something that's very easy for me to exploit. So with that in mind, we are going to kick off into this battle, and we're going to see how our blue buddy Max is doing. He's got the classic bucket hat and the sort of starting t-shirt. I don't blame him. Sometimes, like, they overbear you with all the clothing stuff, and it's so much more expensive than any of the in-game items like potions and revives and whatever, so, you know, save that stuff for what's important. Anyway, Serena comes out here, and I'm just going to go ahead and U-turn on this thing. I don't think there's anything he can do to one-shot me, and he actually goes for U-turn. The interesting tidbit here, I guess there's two interesting tidbits here. One, he outspeeds me. I'm almost max speed timid, so he has to have a lot of speed investment. And then secondly, he only does 17 points of damage to me with his U-turn, which means he does not have attack investment. So it's an interesting spread. It's like max HP, max speed. Maybe he's rocking with Assault Vest or something like that. But because he has so much speed, that actually really helps. Because it means that he is not going to be able to deal with my Rain's, or sorry, he doesn't have as much bulk as he otherwise would have, I guess, so it's going to be a little bit easier for me to wear him down. I'm going to scare out the Toxapex with my Tapu Koko here, easiest U-turn of all time, as the Piloswine comes in, and this is my perfect chance to go into my Volcanion. And like I said, something pretty much gets two-shot here. The Toxicroaks from full has a pretty decent chance to live, and expecting that, I am just going to go straight for an Earth Power. And as you're going to see, we fire off for like 80% almost onto this thing. So I'm starting to think that this thing is a little bit more Fizz-Def than it is Spadef. And that makes sense for dealing with Scizor and stuff like that. But because he by now knows that I'm Specs, he's going to have a pretty decent chance to switch into the Serena. And I'm going to go into my Koko. This is really nice here because he doesn't exactly know my spread yet. Like, he could have done the calc on his Piloswine to figure out that I'm banded with U-turn. But most likely he's just going to be expecting the U-turn again. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. Expecting the U-turn again, or maybe a Volt Switch or whatever. But as it is, I get to straight up Oko that thing with Brave Bird, which is really nice. If he brought in the Piloswine, Brave Bird would have 2-hit KO'd. And so that would have been fine with me too. After the Serena goes down, he does bring in his Piloswine, as you can see here. And the reason I don't like do anything else with my Koko except leave it in basically to die is that I don't really have a switch into this thing anyway. If he wants to go for EQ, I could switch into my Pelipper, but after taking like the combination of Icicle Crash plus Ice Shard from an Adamant Piloswine would actually take out the Pelipper, and I'm not in a position to forfeit my Rain yet. It's just too important still, and so I don't want to lose that. So I end up just staying in, and we're actually able to kill the Piloswine with 2 Brave Birds, and things are looking really nice for me. The Arcanine comes in here. I'm assuming he's just going to click Extreme Speed. I don't really have anything else I can do to that. I don't know what set this thing is, just based off of that. And so I go into my Pelipper here, and the reason I go into Pelipper is because I can set up my Rain again, first of all, and then I'm expecting his double, or either for him to go for Wild Charge, or for him to go for a Will-O-Wisp or something. And in most of those scenarios, Seismitoad is a pretty good play, because it's immune to Wild Charge, it doesn't care about the burn, it can take advantage of a potential Toxapex switch in, like that's the biggest thing that I'm expecting to come in on the Pelipper. But he just clicks E-Speed again, and it does over half, and so this is a banded Arcanine, and this is a problem, because I don't really have any way to stop this thing from clicking E-Speed versus my team. And the fact that my Seismitoad switched into one, it could easily take that one, as you could see, but it definitely can't take 2. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I want to keep my Toad because it's very good in the rain, it's still my late game win con. Salamence is expendable, let's sack it, and then go into my Volcanion, which can take about 44% max from an Adamant Choice banded E-Speed, and we can scare that thing out. I'm just going to click Steam Eruption. I guess I could have clicked Earth Power and it wouldn't have mattered too much, but we are going to be able to take this thing out. We do land a burn on this turn, but I don't think that really made a difference in the slightest, because we were going to be able to either kill it with Steam Eruption on the next turn or do something else like that. But now he's going to go into his Greninja here. I'm trying to do the calc, so I'm trying to figure out if Rock Slide is going to kill or whatever. At this point, I'm kind of expecting the Greninja to be Scarf because he doesn't have any other way to deal with Tapu Koko or Rain. But it turns out he is Power Herb, or I think that's the right one, right? Not White Herb. White Herb is the one that does stats. And he's going to be able to take me out with a Dig, which is really heat. I do really like that. But now I'm going to be able to go into my Toad. Because this thing is now now it's a ground type, I'm going to be able to easily Oko it with Scald. But I'm kind of back in the same position I was a moment ago after my Tapu Koko killed the Piloswine. He's going to be able to bring in his Arcanine, and I pretty much have to choose something to sack. And now the only mons I have left on my team are Seismitoad, Musharna, and Pelipper. And so things are looking a little dicey, I'm not going to lie. I go ahead and sack off my Pelipper, because my Toad, it might still outspeed the Metagross, it still has a chance to do a little bit of damage, but my Pelipper can't survive anything at all. I'm going to go into my Musharna because I take 44% max or so with my Musharna. And it's kind of a funny situation here because he doesn't actually know my spread. If I'm a fully Fizz-Def Musharna, I should, in theory, beat the Arcanine 1v1. if I can, run out the rain and just go for Moonlight and things like that. But as it is, because I'm an offensive Trick Room Musharna, I can't actually beat the combination of these last two Mons. He's going to go for Meteor Mash, and that does almost 60%, which is very painful to watch. We'll be able to kill, of course, with the Shadow Ball. There's no point in clicking Trick Room or anything there, because if he has Bullet Punch, that could potentially take me out anyway. And now that he's got just his Arcanine left in the back, he's in position to just sweep me with extreme speed, and we're going to end up suffering a very narrow 1-0 loss. And so the pivotal turn 100% was just when that Arcanine revenge killed my Tapu Koko. I brought in my Pelipper, and then I went into my Toad thinking that I could get another kill. That was, I guess, a little greedy in retrospect. Like, I mean, it's easy to say, right? It's like, oh, well, if I had known that he was choice banded, I wouldn't have done that. Like, I didn't really have any information to confirm that he was choice banned. And so a defensive set sort of made sense to me, like I said, for something like Scizor. Even though he already had, like, the what do you call it? The Toxicroaks, which seemed built for Scizor. Like, he could still have had more than one thing. That's not impossible. But if I had just gone into, say, Volcanion in that situation, I would have gotten a kill with Earth Power or Steam Eruption or something like that. And then I would still have my full health Toad, I would still have my full health Mence, and I would still have my full health Musharna, all of which I could use in order to deal with Arcanine in that late game. Like, if I had gotten that kill, he was already down Piloswine, Serena, and he would have been down Toxapex. You'd only have the Arcanine, the Greninja, and the Metagross. And I would have 5 Mons. And so I would have more sacks than he does. Like, basically, I would kill something, he would bring in his Arcanine, and then I would have to kill something, and back and forth, and back and forth. But then he would have to, like, his Arcanine could only 2-shot, whereas I had a bunch of Mons that could 1-shot, like the Seismitoad, and I think potentially the Salamence could have with Earthquake, or at least the combination of Earthquake from Salamence and Psyshock from Musharna would have done the trick. But the fact that I went into Toad, let it take a bunch of damage, and then I sacked my Mence, like, basically my Toad couldn't take one anymore, and then I lost my Mence. I immediately went down to now 4-3, but I had several Mons that can no longer live the E-Speed. So it's just a little bit disappointing, to be honest. Like, Max played really great, and that set was brilliant. I had no way to deal with E-Speed, or no good way. Like, I kind of just explained how I think I could have played around it. Like, he really deserves the W. But I'm just a little bummed that I think, like, I was making plays the whole game. I got the Toxapex with the Earth Power. I got the Serena with the Brave Bird. Even at the end of the game there, I got the Metagross switching in with Shadow Ball. So there's lots of, like, really nice plays that I made, and I think I brought the right team. It was really offensive. It just came all down to that one turn. And, like, even if I didn't know 100% that it was banded, I should have figured out a way to play around it, because I think I definitely could have. Like, if I had just, if I gotten damage on Greninja, then my Toad could pretty much just sweep if it could get a clean switch in. Just not having to switch in on the E-Speed there. So, a little bit of a bummer, but all in all, close games are really fun. And even though this brings us to a 3-3 record, I still feel pretty good about our setup in the P4G. I think our roster is busted. And there's still 4 more weeks to go, and I think we're in the last playoff spot, if I'm not mistaken. Please go check out all the other matches to see how everyone else is shaping up for their playoff position. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we rank. So make sure you check into the channel next week for our next P4G game is. And I definitely don't even know who we're playing, but I'll figure that part out soon. Oh, we're playing Blue Rogue. We're going to play this weekend, and it should be really fun. He's got a pretty nice roster. And yeah, make sure you check back to the channel for all sorts of other gaming and Pokemon content. Until the next time, I'll see you guys later.